Caitlin Clark didn't just smile, she didn't just clap, she went wild. From the sidelines, still nursing her injury, Clark watched her teammate Lexi Hull rise from the ashes of one of the worst shooting slumps of her career and absolutely torch Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky. It started with one shot, one smooth, confident three-pointer that ripped through the net like a thunderclap in the middle of a storm. Clark exploded out of her seat, grinning, shouting, arms in the air like she had just hit the game winner herself. And in that moment, the story wasn't about Caitlin being out, it wasn't about injuries, it was about the Fever sending a loud, humiliating message to Reese and the Sky. Even without our star, we can still bury you, but trust me, that first bucket was only the beginning of the chaos. Before Lexi Hull lit up the Chicago Sky, she was stuck in a place every shooter dreads, the kind of slump that makes the rim feel like it's the size of a coin. In the 2 weeks leading up to this game, she went 2 for 25 from beyond the arc. That's 8%. You could see it in her body language. What shots she used to take without thinking were now coming with a split-second pause. Her release looked tighter, her follow-through shorter. Every miss added another brick to the wall in her head, and it wasn't just the stat sheet that made it brutal. Her own mom hadn't seen her hit a three since the first of the month. Think about that. For a player who built her career on spacing the floor and knocking down shots, that's not just a bad week. That's an identity crisis. Then came the moment. Early in the second quarter, the Fever moved the ball around the perimeter and Hull found herself wide open on the wing. It was the same look she'd been missing all month. Only this time there was no hesitation, no second guessing. The ball left her hands with perfect rotation, slicing through the air before splashing clean through the net. And in the corner of the screen, there was Caitlin Clark, jumping up, hands in the air, screaming like she'd just hit a finals game winner. It wasn't just a teammate celebration, it was relief, pride, and maybe even a bit of I told you so to anyone who doubted Lexi would bounce back. That shot didn't just give Indiana 3 points, it gave them a weapon they desperately needed, a confident Lexi Hull. But while that bucket flipped the switch for Hull, the real story is what happened next, because that one make opened the floodgates. If you followed Caitlin Clark since Iowa, you know her competitive fire doesn't switch off just because she's in street clothes. But this was different. The second that three-pointer dropped, Clark popped out of her seat like she'd been hit with a jolt of electricity. She wasn't just clapping politely, she was shouting, grinning ear to ear and pumping her fists like the Fever had just stolen the game in the final seconds. It was the kind of raw, unfiltered joy you only see when the moment means something deeper than the scoreboard. For Clark, this wasn't just about a teammate finally hitting a shot. It was about watching someone fight their way out of a hole that could have buried them for the season. Fans noticed it too. Social media lit up with clips of Clark's sideline reaction. People tweeting things like, Caitlin celebrating Lexi's shot harder than some players celebrate a championship. And this is why she's the best teammate in the league. And honestly, they weren't wrong. Moments like that are why Fever fans believe this team's culture is different. Even when she can't contribute on the floor, Clark finds a way to elevate everyone around her. But Lexi's night was just getting started, and the person on the other side of that humiliation was none other than Angel Reese. And if you know anything about Clark versus Reese, you know this game was never going to be friendly. Angel Reese came into this matchup carrying her usual mix of swagger and chip-on-the-shoulder energy. Chicago needed her to set the tone, not just because she's one of their biggest stars, but because the Sky had been owned by the Fever all season. 3 games, 3 losses. This was supposed to be the night they flipped the script. But instead of revenge, Chicago got run off their own court. From the opening tip, the Sky's offense was a mess. Turnovers, missed layups, botched defensive rotations. They looked like a team waiting for someone else to take charge, and while Reese had flashes of her trademark hustle, Indiana's game plan made sure she never got comfortable. Aaliyah Boston bodied her up in the paint, Sophie Cunningham made every catch a fight, and Lexi Hull hunted mismatches without hesitation. The stat sheet told the story. Chicago shot under 40%, turned the ball over in double digits, and got outscored by more than 20.
Just to add to that, I think Kelsey's not giving herself enough credit. Her and Sophie putting themselves before the team, you know, making sure that they're sacrificing, playing out of position, doing things that they don't normally do, maybe uncomfortable, but I think they both really did a great job of sacrificing in those moments and doing what the team needed to do.
Okay.
What you couldn't see in the box score was the embarrassment building. Every Hull 3 was like salt in the wound, and every Fever defensive stop chipped away at the Sky's composure. By the time the fourth quarter rolled around, Reese was visibly frustrated, missed bunnies at the rim, getting stripped in the post. clapping her hands in disbelief at calls she thought she should have gotten. The body language said it all. And that's when Lexi Hull twisted the knife. Another 3. The crowd erupted. Clark was laughing on the bench. The Sky? They were already done. But here's the thing. Indiana didn't just beat Chicago. They did it without Caitlin Clark, without a single healthy point guard, and without Mercy. On paper, this game should have been a nightmare for Indiana. Caitlin Clark was out. Sydney Colson, gone for the year with an ACL tear. Ari McDonald, also done for the season with a broken foot that left the Fever with 0 healthy point guards. In most leagues, losing your floor general is like pulling the engine out of a car. You can have all the shiny parts you want, but you're not going anywhere. Yet somehow the Fever didn't just run, they flew. Coach Stephanie White didn't hide it. She had no choice but to run the offense by committee. That meant players like Kelsey Mitchell, Sophie Cunningham, and even Aaliyah Boston taking turns initiating plays. It wasn't flashy and it wasn't always pretty, but it worked because everyone bought in. Kelsey Mitchell, a pure scorer her entire career, stepped into the point guard role and ended the night with a season high in assists. She sacrificed shot attempts to set up her teammates, threading passes through traffic and creating looks Hull hadn't seen in weeks. Cunningham played out of position to help stabilize the backcourt. Boston anchored the paint, cleaning up every defensive rebound like her life depended on it. It was the definition of next woman up. No complaining, no excuses, just a group of players deciding they weren't going to fold because the injury report said they should. And when Lexi Hull started heating up, the whole team rallied around her. You could feel the momentum swing. The Fever weren't just trying to win, they were trying to send a message. But while Indiana's resilience was impressive, the way they finished this game is what made it unforgettable and what left Angel Reese and the Sky looking completely outmatched. This wasn't just another regular season win. This was a statement, one that echoed far beyond the scoreboard. By blowing out Chicago 92-70, Indiana didn't just keep their perfect record against the Sky intact, they buried them. 4 games, 4 wins, all with double-digit margins. For a team that desperately needed a boost after back-to-back losses to Phoenix and LA, this was the kind of performance that can flip an entire season's energy. And make no mistake, the humiliation factor was real. Angel Reese is the face of the Sky and Caitlin Clark is the face of the Fever. Even when they're not going head-to-head on the floor, their rivalry is baked into every matchup. So when Reese had an off night and the Fever turned the game into a highlight reel, with Clark cheering every dagger from the bench, it fed right into the growing narrative that Indiana owns this matchup. For Fever fans, this wasn't just a win. It was a warning shot to the rest of the WNBA. If we can dismantle you without our superstar, what's going to happen when she's back? Social media loved it. Clips of Clark's sideline reactions and Hull's sudden hot streak were everywhere. Analysts started talking about Indiana's depth, about how this group could be a dangerous playoff team now, not just in the future. But the scariest part for opponents? This win wasn't a fluke. It was built on something deeper: resilience, trust, and a belief that anyone in that locker room can take over when it matters. And with the playoffs getting closer, that combination is deadly. The box score will say Lexi Hull had 17 points and Kelsey Mitchell dished out a season high in assists. But if you watch the game, you know it was about so much more than numbers. It was about a team proving they can take the floor without their superstar and still dominate. It was about a shooter clawing her way back from the lowest point in her career to put on a clinic against a rival in front of a roaring home crowd. And it was about a leader on the bench, in street clothes, lifting her teammates with every shout, every fist pump, every ounce of energy she had to give. Caitlin Clark's reaction wasn't just hype, it was belief, the kind that spreads through a locker room and makes everyone play just a little harder. And for Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky, it was the kind of night you don't forget. We've all seen teams crumble under pressure, but this Fever squad, they get stronger. And if this is what they can do shorthanded, just imagine the chaos when Clark steps back onto the court. So if you felt that same rush watching Lexi light it up and Caitlin lose it on the bench, let's hear it in the comments. Who's ready for the next chapter in this rivalry? Because something tells me the best is yet to come.